Today we're looking at material detailing the identification of the Nazi executioner Jakobus Onnen from that infamous 1941 photo, The Last Jew in Vinnitsa, a breakthrough using AI and historical documents.
And it's just a remarkable piece of research. I mean, the work is so robust. Getting into Onnen's biography, a teacher of all things who joins the SS, serves at Dachau, and then the fact that this photo was used at the Eichmann trial, it's incredibly significant work.
It is.
But we do see a few ways to elevate it from being, excellent documentation into a truly powerful narrative.
Okay, so let's start right there, with the emotional pour. The material makes a huge case for identifying Onnen, but there's this profound opportunity with the other figure in the photograph.
The victim.
The victim.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The real power here, I think, is in the contrast. The executioner, who we now know in meticulous detail, versus the victim, who remains completely anonymous.
Right, and the weakness we see is that the material sort of states his anonymity as a fact and then moves on. It says he symbolizes humanity versus cruelty, but that idea isn't really woven through the piece. So the victim almost becomes a footnote to the story of identifying the killer.
Which is a huge risk. You focus so much on the 99.9% certainty of Onnen's identity that you inadvertently silence the man he's about to murder. We shouldn't see that anonymity as a failure of the research, but as a central part of the narrative itself.
So the suggestion is to reframe the whole thing around that contrast, to constantly highlight the challenge that the unknown victim represents.
And connect him directly to the bigger picture. We're not just talking about one man. We're talking about the 1.3 million unlisted names at Yad Vashem. He stands for all of them.
You have to turn that anonymity from just a fact into an active driving theme.
Exactly. The story isn't just, we found the killer. It's, in finding the killer, we've made the victim's absence even more profound.
So let's make that concrete. How would someone actually do that?
Well, for one, you could flip the entire opening on its head. Instead of leading with the tech breakthrough, start with the duality.
The contrast.
Use that as your hook. So you might say something like, we now have the name of the man holding the gun, Jakobus Onnen. But the man facing him represents the 1.3 million victims whose names were erased. Anonymity being the final act of the crime.
That immediately sets the stakes so much higher.
It does, and then you have to carry that through. So when you're talking about the painstaking process of identifying Onnen, the AI, the family photos, his detailed SS file, you immediately pivot.
Right. You pivot to the parallel and completely fruitless search for the victim's records.
Yes, you show that imbalance. One man's life documented down to the last detail by a murderous bureaucracy, and the other, he just vanished. No paper trail. It shows rather than tell that asymmetry of history.
And the conclusion. It can't just be about Onnen dying in 1943. That feels so anticlimactic.
No, it has to loop back. It has to end on the idea that identifying Onnen is one form of justice, or at least documentation. But the real work, honoring the nameless, is unfinished. His anonymity is the ghost that haunts the entire story.
It's a much more powerful and, frankly, more honest ending.
It is.
Okay, so if we're reframing the emotion core that much, that brings up the second big point, which is really about the structure, the architecture of the piece.
The timeline.
The timeline. It's a bit tangled.
I felt that too. To really maximize the impact, you need a very deliberate strategy for handling these three different chronological threads you've got running.
Right. You've got the event in 1941, then the photo's public life, 1945, the Eichmann trial, and then the identification process in 2024.
And the weakness is that the current version just jumps between them. We're in 41 at the massacre, then suddenly we're at the Eichmann trial 16 years later, then bam, 2024 AI results, then back to Onnen's death in 43.
It's a kind of temporal whiplash.
You start with the present, and then you work your way back. It sounds counterintuitive for history, but it's more like an investigation.
So you're saying lead with the answer.
Exactly. Flip the script. The real story here is the solving of an 80-year-old mystery. So layer one is the hook. You start with the dramatic reveal, the 2024 AI identification of Onnen, the 99.9% match. You establish the why now.
Get the reader hooked on the who and the how.
And once they're hooked, then you go to layer two, the scene. You immediately zoom back to that specific, horrifying moment. July 28th, 1941, Berdichev citadel. You paint the picture of the Einsatzgruppen, what they were doing. You provide that essential gravity.
So you give them the answer, then you show them the crime.
And only then do you get to layer 3, which is the validation. That's where you bring in all the other historical details. Onnen as a teacher, his service at Dachau, the photo at the Eichmann trial.
I see. So that information becomes supporting evidence for why this identification matters, rather than just being scattered facts.
Precisely. It guides the reader from a modern discovery back into the depths of history and then confirms the weight of it all. It's just a much cleaner, more powerful way to tell the story.
And that structure, I think, also helps solve this final issue we saw, which is about the methodology, about balancing the different kinds of evidence.
The AI versus the human detective work.
Yes.
That's a great point, because while the AI is the shiny, modern hook, the material needs to give equal, if not more dramatic weight to the human scholarship that made it all possible.
The weakness right now is that the piece leans so heavily on the tech. The up to 99.9% match is front and center. But the other huge breakthrough, correcting the location from Vinnitsa to Berdichev, is treated almost like an afterthought.
Right, it's just presented as, oh, they found a similar photo in a soldier's diary. It makes the most crucial piece of historical correction feel secondary to an algorithm.
And it wasn't secondary at all.
Not at all. The tech match means nothing if you have the guy in the wrong place at the wrong time. So my suggestion is to dramatize that process of historical correction. The location shift is a fundamental discovery. That diary is the anchor.
It's the human counterweight to the machine.
It's the human counterweight. I love that. I mean, think about it. For 80 years, history had this photo pinned to the wrong place. And it took this combination of brand new tech and an old, forgotten diary entry to fix it. That's the real story of how history gets written.
So you frame it as two keys. The AI gives you the who, but the diary gives you the where and the when.
Exact. You have to show that the diary photo was specifically marked Berdichev's Citadel, July 28, 1941. That specific primary source evidence is what makes the whole thing hold up. It's the proof.
So the flow isn't the AI found him, and by the way, the location was wrong.
No, the flow should show that the human effort, the digging through archives, photos, testimonies, is what led them to that diary. And that discovery provided the rock-solid context that validated the AI match. You could even build a small subplot around the researcher realizing Vinnitsa was wrong and the search that followed.
It shows that technology is just a tool. It still requires deep human investigation to make sense of what it finds.
It makes the whole piece more intellectually satisfying, and it really gives the researcher, Dr. Matthäus, the full credit he deserves for his comprehensive skill.
Okay, this has been an incredibly focused critique on what is, I think we agree, extremely important work. So just to recap, we focused on 3 core areas. First, maximizing the emotional power by making the unidentified victim's anonymity a central, active theme.
Right, making him a symbol for the 1.3 million. Second, we suggested optimizing the entire structure with that 3-phase reveal, using the modern discovery as the hook to pull the reader back through the timelines of 1941 and 1945.
And third, ensuring that the critical human detective work, especially finding that Austrian soldier's diary that corrected the location to Berdichev, is given equal dramatic and methodological weight alongside the very impressive AI results.
I think these suggestions are really designed to take this material from what is already excellent scholarly documentation and turn it into a truly powerful, unforgettable narrative. We are genuinely looking forward to seeing the refined version of your work.